All systems go.
Houston, we have takeoff.
Welcome to the Recovered Life Show. You're tuned in to a new episode of Recovery This Week with your hosts, Damon Frank and Shauna McKenna-Vick.
Welcome to Recovery This Week. I'm Damon Frank.
And I'm Shauna McKenna-Vick. Well, Damon, I have to tell you that music and the intro was just so phenomenal. I hope that I can live up to the intro. That was great. I love it.
You know what?
This week.
Just like sobriety, Shauna, we're getting better every day. For those of you guys who don't know what we're talking about here, if you're listening on the podcast, if you hit us on the live, the intro to the live is really cool. You could do that at YouTube. Just type in Recovered Life. Where are you? I always get you in some remote location.
The rocket launch said live from Houston. So I am outside of Houston, actually. I'm in Texas this week. Well, these past few days, I'm always on the road, either taking clients to treatment, living with clients, doing interventions, just always on the road. So lots of people needing help, and it's difficult to navigate sobriety. It's difficult to navigate treatment. So it's what I do.
'Tis the season for some really good addiction. That's what I like to say. We're like careening right into Thanksgiving. And a lot of people I've noticed on TikTok, I just did a TikTok live, and it was all about what we're talking about today is about this whole friends and family not supporting your recovery, your sobriety. Man, what's the deal with that?
It's tough, Damon. Someone wants to get sober, say they go to treatment, they come home. Nothing has changed since they left, right? And we're told we need to change people, places, and things. But guess what? I can't change my family. I don't know about you, but I can't change my family. And if I'm coming home, I will say I came out of treatment once the day after Thanksgiving because I wasn't quite sure I wanted to navigate Thanksgiving at home, newly sober. But, people will say they're very supportive, right? And, I support you so much. I'm so glad you got sober. But they might not be willing to take action behind that, like have a dry Thanksgiving or, not have alcohol in the house. So it's tough to navigate.
It is tough to navigate. It's interesting how many everybody that I talk to in recovery has a story of maybe just one person that's a friend or family member that freaked out when they got sober or was really not supportive, and I thought, man, maybe that's just my story, although overwhelmingly a lot of people were, but it's a huge transition time, and a lot of people freak out. Why do you think people freak out? I have my own opinion on it, but why do you think people freak out?
I think of one girl that I used to drink with. This is when I got sober the first time. Okay, we used to drink always together, and I hardly saw her after because my assumption is she couldn't spend time with me without drinking and didn't want to drink around me. So me being sober actually showed up in her that she might have a disordered relationship with alcohol. That's one. Some others don't, some people don't want to see you succeed also. That's kind
codependency. I think codependency is another reason.
Yeah.
Shauna, is that sometimes it's like if their relationship is fixing you, if all of a sudden they perceive you as fixed by getting sober, that's a huge threat to, who they think they are and their role with you.
Correct. And that's really important that you bring up an excellent point. When we do interventions, we look at the whole family system. It's not just that we're intervening on the person, we're actually intervening on the addiction, and we take the person out of the center because it's usually a very sick family system. If you have one member who's sick, and this goes for family members who may have cancer or something else, when you have a sick family member, regardless of the disease, there are certain behaviors that take place, and there's adjustments and maladaptive coping mechanisms that are put in place. And so you're exactly right. You get sober and you turn the world on its axis. They no longer can fix you, but it might change into a different relationship. Well, how's your recovery going? That used to drive me nuts. Friends would say, well, how's your recovery going? I'm like, my recovery is fine. Why don't you ask me what I cooked for lunch today? Because I love to cook, right? Like,
exactly.
I have my sober support system. I have my 12-step program. I have a therapist, I have a psychiatrist. I have my sober support system. Why can't we just be friends? But
yeah, the funny thing is that, and I have a couple TikTok videos that I want to show you, and
Okay.
I'd love we'll comment on them, because there are those people who they're just uncomfortable around it because they have the stigma of what an alcoholic is. And I
Right.
know a lot of family members are like, they don't want to look at their own shit. So they're like, you know what? If he's an alcoholic, oh crap. And so they're like, you can't be an alcoholic, because if you're an alcoholic, this is what it means for me. But I have to tell you, this is a big one. I got to show you this video real quick. And
then I want to come back to that point about if he's an alcoholic. So let's not forget to come back to that point. So let's see the video.
Okay, yeah, let's definitely take a look at this video, because I think
my father doesn't actually like me being sober, because my sobriety now holds up the mirror to his own drinking habits. So my dad, and people will say like, this is a classic Aussie dad, which is kind of the problem, right? But my dad, every single day after work, has his cigarette and has 2 VBs. Every single day without fail. He doesn't miss a day. And he's been doing this before I was born. So for 30, I'm going to assume like 40 plus years, to the point where, my mum's a nurse, and she said, Julia, like, he can't quit. He has an alcohol dependency. And every time I go back there for Christmas or anything, he's always putting a wine in front of me and saying like, basically saying that I'm boring now that I don't drink. Excuse me. He just makes all of these little remarks. And I know I've learned not to bite back anymore, because it's just him projecting simply. And yeah, I just hold up the mirror to everything, that all of the stuff he needs to work out inside of himself. So a little bit deep, and I don't really talk about it often, but that's my father, and I will post my mother's response in the next video.
What do you think of that?
So there's a couple things that brings up. Her dad has had a cigarette and his 2 drinks, whatever BBs are, every day forever. She doesn't say if he continues on to drink all night long, but it sounds like he has his 2 drinks and he's done, right? So he may have an alcohol dependence. That may just be what he does, his 2 drinks, and never have more, never have less. And that's fine. He might not have a problem. I think where the problem comes when he's trying to put wine in front of her is he doesn't know how to use the words, I don't know what to say. You not drinking makes me feel uncomfortable because I don't know how to act around you. That would open a conversation, but people don't have the words or the courage or the ability to be vulnerable to say, I really don't know how to act around you. Can you help me out here? That's one thing, I think.
That is a big thing. And I think, it's interesting though, like kind of teasing and taunting. And I've had that done to me before with friends, and that it's so uncomfortable for everyone involved, primarily the person, like they just don't understand addiction a lot of times. I keep saying either that, if they understand addiction, they've got to be really mean, right? Like it's interesting that people have this reaction.
Oh, and I mean, there's not so much of a stigma anymore that that if someone says they're an alcoholic, that they can't drink. I mean, it's obvious. We see it in movies. If someone's, in recovery and they do pick up a drink, they go off the rails, right? Or even in our own lives, like anyone who knows me knows they would never even offer me a drink. I would say no, regardless, but they know that if I had a drink, I would be off the rails. I absolutely can't even have just a sip, right? And that she says she's holding up a mirror to her dad, and I don't know if her dad really has an addiction. Like he has, maybe it's a dependence, maybe it's just his habit. Like she didn't say he gets drunk all the time. She said he has 2 drinks.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
I bet if the doctor told her dad that he needs to stop drinking for his heart, he'd probably be able to stop because he doesn't have the addiction. But we can't say that. I heard a great thing. In meeting, and what separates us from other people. When we control our drinking, we don't enjoy it, and when we enjoy our drinking, we can't control it.
Oh, that's really good.
Isn't that a good one?
That is really, really good. Well, I think with the holidays too, Shauna, is that one of the things that's very difficult in the holidays is that everything is in a pressure cooker. So you have people who have food disorders
Yes.
and are pushing food. You have people who are, have expectations, and there's family drama and personal issues. And then you throw somebody new in recovery specifically in there. And then you tell other people, and I'm sorry, but like, I think as a parent, one of the first reactions if something's wrong with you is like, well, what could I have done, or what could I do? And especially with addiction, you go through this with interventions all the time, that people blame themselves, I think, a lot, or they have this inner guilt that they're working out, maybe not in an appropriate way.
Right. And the interesting thing about coming up to, you have the family drama, the expectations, you have all the arguments that went on all through the year. You might not have seen the families, but there might have been a lot of text drama, right? And so you're coming together and people are looking for a way for anything. And alcohol, oh my gosh, bring alcohol into that, and it can really either lube it and make it soft if people aren't argumentative, or it will set people off. And I was just working with a family, and they had decided they would have a dry Thanksgiving, just because one, they've never had a celebration dry ever.
Wow.
And so they thought they would have a dry Thanksgiving. And then there were a couple of new people coming into the mix for Thanksgiving. And so they said, well, maybe it won't be totally dry, because they don't quite know how to say to so-and-so and so-and-so, even though their daughter's been in rehab a couple of times. I'm like, really easy. You just say, we were considering having a dry Thanksgiving. What do you think about that?
Yeah. Or we're having a dry Thanksgiving. That's it.
That's it.
It's interesting. Like, I know I came from a big drinking family, and I will tell you, it was quite the drama. And I know that in our family, several times we tried to say no alcohol, but it just never really worked out that way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's funny that the longer you stay sober, you could see just you staying sober affecting your family.
Mm-hmm.
changing your family, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is really, really cool. You start to see it kind of, I don't want to say rub off, but they start to say like, hey, there's a better way. We don't really necessarily need this. What is it bringing to the table?
Well, exactly. And that's the thing, is that if you've never had a celebration dry, it certainly is interesting to have one, just as a social experiment. Really, to see how people are and can act with each other, and how they behave, and not that people necessarily misbehave with alcohol, but it often leads to deeper conversations, to more intimate details, less chaos.
Yes.
Things don't get burned in the oven because someone's off having a drink, forgetting about something. It really is amazing to have a dry celebration. If you've never had one, just as a social experiment, you should try it, even if you're not in recovery. Back to your point where you said we can just say, oh, we're having a dry Thanksgiving, and leave it at that. What do you think would prevent people from saying that? I know in my mind what might prevent someone from just saying, hey, we're having a dry Thanksgiving.
We had family members that refused to come. And so that can happen. And I've seen it. And the other thing I see a lot, and I've seen this with people that I've worked with in recovery, is that the people who have an alcohol problem, or they have a drug problem, we'll get, because there's kind of two things that I see, Shauna, is that people with, I never have a problem when I say I'm sober and I don't drink. It's
Mhm.
only people typically that have a problem with substances that come after me. That's
Right.
overwhelmingly. I mean, I could say I could pick out the alcoholic in the room just by their response, right?
Sure, sure.
And so I think a lot of people just don't want to be challenged because it's too much of a challenge for them. They would then have to look at their own stuff, and they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that.
Right. That, yes, definitely. People don't want to look at their own stuff and say, God, can I actually make it through a Thanksgiving without having a drink? Or they might say, well, I'll just lube up at home. But then the question is, why? Why do you have to have
Right?
treatment?
Exactly.
What's wrong with
Exactly
going
right.
you go to work without alcohol, hopefully. Um, but people also may not want to say we're having a dry Thanksgiving because they're concerned about what others will think or concerned about how others will feel about that. When really, like you said, if there's no alcohol problem or anything, people are like, no problem, whatever. Y'all bring the
Yes.
iced tea and lemonade.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. You know what, Shauna? I want to get into, we're going to take a quick little break here,
Okay.
just like 15, 30 seconds here, a little break. And then when we come back, I want to talk about something specific is about our responsibility for recovery, because I think the other side of this is sometimes people feel that it's their friends and family's job to keep them sober. I've heard this on the holidays,
Mhm.
and it's not, right? And so we're going to dump into that. And I've got a really good video I want you to watch. Guys, help support the show, like us, follow us. And if you want to help spread the message, buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/recovered life. We're going to be right back after this quick, very brief break, and we're going to jump right back into it.
Step out of the shadows into the light. Find your tomorrow, start the fight. Recovered Life TV, see the change. Living your best life, it's within reach. Visit recoveredlife.tv today.
You're listening to The Recovered Life Show, the show that helps people in recovery live their best recovered lives.
And we're back, guys. We're talking about family and friends not supportive of your sobriety. It happens, as we're talking about. We got Shauna McKenna-Vick, legendary and phenomenal interventionist, live from Texas with us today. Shauna, okay, now let's just jump into this.
Hey, jump in. Do you have another video? I love when we do the videos.
Yes, I do. And I want to talk about the victim thing. I want to talk about pour me a drink. Because there's a lot of people like, well, I relapsed because my uncle looked at me sideways. And, I don't think my dad, loves me as much as he should love me. And I relapsed because they're, quote, not supportive. I want to show this video because I think you're gonna respond to it. Here we go.
This is for my addicts in recovery, especially anybody who might be struggling and can relate to what I'm about to tell you. The story I'm about to tell you. Well, it's not a story, but you'll see. So listen, one of my biggest problems when I was trying to get clean, now listen, okay, I have finally gotten a few years of clean time underneath my belt. But before then, I went years and years and years going in and out of NA rooms. I went to rehab, detox, I did all the things, okay? And one of the biggest things that I think bothered me during that time is that my family didn't celebrate my clean time with me. You know how when you're in NA, you get your key tag and it feels good and it's an accomplishment, and all your friends there, they stand up and they hug you and they clap for you, and it's amazing, okay? It feels really good to be recognized for, quite frankly, hard fucking work staying clean. So I would get into my feelings about it because it really wasn't even talked about. My recovery or even my drug use was not talked about. I felt like nobody was like, Heather, how are you doing? How is your recovery going? Is there anything that I can do to help? And that killed me at times. But I also had to remember this. It's not my family's job to make me feel better. It wasn't their job to help keep me clean. I had done so much shit and they were upset. They were mad. Yes, they wanted me to get clean. They weren't like sabotaging me. But I was so caught up in my head at times in my feelings of it that I would let it get to me. And I want to tell you this, you don't need anybody validating your clean time. Celebrate yourself.
What do you think of that, Shauna?
So I think, it was great that she made the pivot, right? And she had the solution there. You don't need anyone celebrating your clean time. You don't need people. But when you're trying to get all this external validation to drive you to stay sober, oh, I'm so proud you're sober. I'm so proud. Like for me, I will tell you, I don't want to talk about it. I'll say to my family, hey, listen, I've got 4 years, I've got 5 years. But I overall, I don't really want to because I do celebrate in my meetings and I am just glad that I have my life back and I can work on relationships. We can tend to be a victim, right? Play the victim. Like here we're going to Thanksgiving dinner and so-and-so and so-and-so fight. And that really bothers me. And I'm going to be so uncomfortable. And I'm, what about, I got up, I went to a meeting, I did my prayer and meditation. I'm going to respond and not react to people. I'm going to use my distress tolerance skills. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to use deep breath. I'm going to do whatever I can, stay sober because it's up to me. It's up to me to stay sober. They don't need to change their behavior for me to stay sober.
There's a lot of wreckage too. And I think a lot of people maybe have resentment. And a lot of times in newer sobriety, you haven't worked out, Shauna, those amends. You haven't done all that stuff. So now you're coming in and they're like, oh, well, now Damon wants it to be like this, right? Now Shauna wants it to be like now we have to cater around them. And that is where resentment comes in. And I'm somebody too, I celebrate my recovery milestones because I think it's important for me to do that, to acknowledge it. And I think it's also important for other people who are coming into the sobriety journey, that they can see that it works, right? You have an obligation to do that, I believe. But yeah, this whole idea of that people have to fawn over you now that you're sober and save you, it's BS.
It is BS. It is BS. And, I can't control other people's drinking. I can choose not to serve. I can choose not to buy it. I'm not going to buy the stuff and provide it. We talked about this the last week, but I remember at different times I'll say to my brother and his wife and family, hey, listen, I'm not serving. Just bring your own, I'm not going out to buy anything. Bring whatever you want to drink and take it with you when you go. Right. So if you want to have a few drinks and they'll be like, nah, we're not bringing anything to drink. We're just going to have soft drinks, and I've never asked them to. I've never asked them. Well, early on, we had official dry stuff in my very early days. And that was very kind. I never asked because, again, it's up to me to stay sober and to work my program because be it Thanksgiving dinner, be it a business dinner, be it something, there's alcohol in the airport and whatever. I can't rely on external things to keep me sober. I have to live my life and make sure that I can stay sober inside and work my own program of recovery. I cannot rely on other people to keep me sober. They help me stay sober, but they don't keep me sober.
Absolutely. I want to talk one other quick thing. I want you to see one other little video real quick. And this is just specifically I want to talk about here, Shauna, questions that people have a lot, which is, what if it's dangerous for me to go to a Thanksgiving, to a holiday party? And what if they're actually really trying to sabotage me for whatever reason? And look, unfortunately, this happens. I want to show you. I want to show you this video real quick because I think she just really, I'd love your thoughts on this. Here we go.
I can tell you mine.
You were out of country for 2 weeks with your family. That means you're clean now, right? Well, my family, I'm not a big drinker. My family, however, all of them are huge drinkers. Never drank more in my life. Never drank more. They kept telling me, Purple, have a drink. Anytime we did anything, I was just a little stressed, you know. Maybe not the nicest, but my family brings that out in me sometimes. My mom's solution was, do you need Xanax? Would you like a Xanax? Yeah, that got me clean. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Wow. That's
Wow, right?
wow. Forgetting that any mind-altering substance is still a mind-altering substance. I didn't quite follow her exactly what she meant. You know, you're clean now. You've been away with your family. We can have someone who would say, pour a glass of wine for me, knowing I'm sober. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to swear, but I'd be like, Hugh, what are you doing? Yeah, you know I'm sober. Why would you pour that? You know,
Yeah.
there are people who do want to sabotage you.
Yeah.
The reasons we
friends,
talked
too.
about at the beginning, because their whole lives have changed and they don't know how to deal with it.
They don't. And you know, and I'm going to tell you, one of the things that is so crazy about this is one of the things I had to learn is that sometimes you have to just walk away. Maybe not forever, but sometimes Thanksgiving, it's not the place to be. Sometimes it's just not you know, because I'd always tell myself, and I was always told, Damon, if you can't stay sober, nothing else matters. Mm-hmm. If they like you, if they don't like you, if you get the job, you don't get the job, you get the client, you don't, you do this, you don't, whatever. It doesn't matter. If you can't stay sober, I'm not going to have any of those things. So sometimes if you're not in the position to deal with it, I say don't deal with it. Now, don't make it bigger than what it is. Don't make it up.
Just politely decline the invitation.
Politely decline. Absolutely.
Now, in sobriety, Damon, I have found things to be, I have politely declined when I felt my emotional sobriety was at risk as well. Not just my, you know, if there was a lot of tension going in around something, or I just didn't feel comfortable. It wasn't because I thought I was going to drink, but that it was going to impact my emotional sobriety too, that I wasn't, maybe I was way overtired. I've been working hard and stressed out, and I just couldn't show up with grace and dignity, and might be a little hypersensitive, whatever it is. I have declined invitations on that basis as well. So not just, you know, like in early sobriety, if it was dangerous, but I will echo what you said. If it is dangerous, if they don't support your sobriety, if they're going to be the ones that say, well, just, you know, pop a Xanax to help you get through the next couple hours. If they're going to be the ones that are like that, and you know that, just politely decline. It's just one Thanksgiving, and the next year you'll be stronger. But in early recovery, maybe, you know, there are, I remember one of my first Christmases when I came back, there's usually meeting marathons. So I signed up to do a meeting like at 7 p.m. on Christmas Day or something, so that I knew that I had to leave wherever I was to go to that meeting, and because I had signed up to chair that meeting. And, you know, they have marathons where they have meetings every hour. And I've left brunches before, Christmas brunches, and said, well, I'm just going, thank you so much. It's been a wonderful brunch. And they knew I was in recovery. I'm just going over to hit a meeting at noon. And, you know, once you leave, no one even remembers that you were there. Practically, that people don't care. We think everybody thinks about us. They don't.
No. And, you know, and I think having that bumper of knowing where you're going to be, when your next meeting is, when that next call with that person that your support person is, I think it's absolutely great. And I think it's the way to get through tough holidays. Yeah. Shaw, this has been good.
Park your car further down the street so no one parks behind you. So you can always get out.
Yeah, why do they always park behind you if you're on your way out?
I don't know. So always have an exit plan. We've said it before. Don't go if you think you might be uncomfortable. Go to a meeting and feed your sobriety, and then, always make sure you can leave once you've gotten there. But if you got there early and you have 10 cars behind you, you will feel trapped in, literally and figuratively, and be unable to go. So
you have to go back into the house and get and remove the car. It's the worst. Shauna McKinovic, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you, Damon.
Have a great time in Texas, guys. Go out and live your best recovered life. Check us out at Recovered Life TV. And please, if you're seeing this online, we're trying to grow. So like it, share it, give it to somebody who can help, because Shauna's advice is golden.
Well, it's not just my advice. Damon's advice is golden too.
It's all golden.
It's all golden. We love doing this. We love helping people get and stay sober. Have a great one, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Go out and live your best recovered life.
Hey, if you like this episode, think about supporting us by becoming a Recovered Life Plus member. At Recovered Life TV, we're not just delivering premium recovery resources, we're empowering you with the knowledge and tools that make a real difference in the quality of your recovery. By subscribing, you gain access to ad-free content, expert insights, exclusive video and audio segments, special projects, plus so much more, all while supporting our mission to spread the recovery message far and wide. Whether you're seeking to deepen your understanding or stay updated on the latest addiction and mental health recovery trends, Recovered Life Plus is for you. Subscribe now and start living your best recovered life. Just go to recoveredlife.tv and become a Plus member today.